The British way of life is under threat, ladies and gentlemen. Well, we all know that, don't we? But anyway, the latest iteration of this is the Energy Secretary, Ed Miliband. He discussing all of this today when focusing on climate change. Take a listen.
What if net zero was a target that Theresa May adopted, driven by the science? So what are they? They are anti-science, they are anti-jobs, they are anti-energy security, and they are anti-future generations. Can't put it better than Theresa May, and this is what she said. Theresa May, she was a former Conservative Prime Minister just 5 years ago. Those of us who advocate accelerating our progress towards net zero emissions are labelled fanatics and zealots. Ironically, the name-calling often emanates from ideologues at the political extremes or from populists who offer only easy answers to complex questions. I couldn't put it better myself.
Well, there you go. What do you make to that? He was, of course, suggesting there that politicians that don't buy into the net zero policies are failing somehow future generations here. Yusuf, I think he means Reform UK among that.
Well, he is right. The first part of what he said was correct, that the British way of life is under threat. It's under severe, potential mortal threat. But if there's one thing it is not under threat from, it is climate change. I mean, the guy's a complete lunatic. Lee Anderson, our brilliant MP for Ashfield, asked him a question in the House of Commons today. He asked him a very simple question. If this is all true, how much will global temperatures reduce by if Britain does everything that Mad Ed Miliband wants to do? And as usual, he couldn't answer the question. Michelle, the UK is responsible for less than 1% of global carbon emissions. I tweeted today, you can go look at my account, I tweeted what has happened since 1960 to CO2 emissions in the UK versus China. The UK sort of trends sideways and then down.
Yeah, but one of those...
And China has gone absolutely bananas.
Yes,
they're digging up 4.7 billion tonnes of coal last year alone.
Yes, but one of the reasons for that is we outsource loads of our manufacturing now to China. That's why we're seeing that decline that you're talking about, decline with us and an increase with them, because we're farming it off to them.
Yeah, it's like saying, I'm throwing all the garbage in my front garden into my neighbours and claiming you're doing the world a massive service. It's absolutely insane. This country has the highest energy costs of any developed nation. That's why a big reason, arguably the primary reason, actually, why our economy does not grow. There's not a single example in history, Michelle, of a fast-growing modern economy with the kind of energy costs that we have. China pays 70% less than we do. The US is paying half of what we do. And on top of that, you have these insane subsidies, which is a regressive tax on the people watching this programme. It's around about £300 per household per year over the last decade that people have been paying in subsidies. I want to say one last thing. He is right when he quoted Theresa May. It was the Tories who signed all of this into law in the first place. Both of the two old parties have subscribed to this mad net zero religion. It is making Britain poorer.
Yeah, it was a very absurd thing that the Tories did. They enshrined it, of course, into their law, their targets and all the rest of it, but without really, I would argue, any plan as to how on earth they were going to achieve it. But anyway, Barry Gardner, your thoughts?
Well, look, Zia's making the economic case here, and I think there is an economic case to be made. He's not denying that climate change at a global level will have a severe impact on all our way of life. And in fact, we've seen this. You only need to talk to our farmers. If you talk to our farmers, they'll say that their crops, because of the heat wave, are reduced. Because of the floods, they've been lost. They'll tell you exactly what climate change is doing. But more than that, if you look at what the OBR has said, they say that if we do go to a 3 degrees Celsius uplift in the world temperature, then GDP would be cut on average by 8%. That's £200 billion a year by the 2070s. So the economic case is very clear. Yes, doing this, making sure that we stop climate change and reverse it, is going to cost us money. But if we don't do it, then globally it's going to cost us a lot more. Now, what Zia was saying was, well, why are we doing it? Our own impact as a small country is not going to be the deciding factor. Well, that's like saying, well, let everybody else bear the brunt of it. In fact, if you look at what's happening in China, and Zia mentioned China, they have set a peaking for coal by 2030 and net zero by 2060. if you look at what India's done, they've set net zero by 2070. Now, these are economies that were a lot further back than us, but they're taking huge strides. In fact, China's making more of the renewables than any other country in the world at the moment. And they've passed legislation that is on a par with what the UK legislation was. So what Zia's got to explain is, why is it that all the scientists in all the countries that disagree with each other on everything else, China, the US, Russia, the European Union, all of their scientists agree that, that climate change is a huge threat to our way of life. And yet Zia won't accept that we need to do anything about it.
Do you want to save a boatload of cash this summer, wherever you have a trip planned? The one thing you're going to need is access to the internet and on the go. And you can do that easily with Saily. Hit the link in the description to get 15% off your first eSIM plan ready for your trip, so you can browse to your heart's content. Saily gets you a local SIM card you can use when traveling, so you don't have to pay those crazy roaming fees just to send a message or check the latest news. Now, they've got plans in over 160 countries, 8 regions, so pretty much everywhere, wherever you're going, they'll be able to make sure you're connected. So how does it work? All you've got to do is this. Hit the link in the description to download the app. It will work on iOS or Android. Buy a plan. You can choose an amount of data and time frame that suits you best. And then just install the eSIM on your phone. When you land at your holiday destination, you can activate your plan instantly. And if that wasn't enough, Saily eSIMs only ever have to be installed once. So when you go on your next trip, you just buy a plan for a new country, turn that eSIM back on, and boom, you're back watching me on GBNews. I'll be using a Saily SIM on my next holiday because it's actually faster than some of the hotel Wi-Fis. You can get unlimited data if you want, so you can scroll away to your heart's content. And when you leave the hotel, you don't have to do that annoying thing of Wi-Fi hopping because you've got constant connectivity wherever you go. And they've got 24/7 support as well, and a full refund policy if your eSIM isn't compatible. So get sorted for your next trip. Download Saily using the link in the description below. And if you use the code NEWS at checkout, you'll get an exclusive 15% discount on us. So click the link, download Saily, and use the code NEWS at checkout.
Barry, Xi Jinping and Modi are laughing because people like you buy their rhetoric. Look at what they're actually doing. India and China are increasing coal production, gangbusters, year after 4.7 billion tonnes last year. The UK was so sure we didn't need coal production anymore. They didn't just turn them off, they blew them up. The UK is unilaterally disarming economically, and that is going to have an impact, obviously, on a military basis too. And, you know, you talk about what Britain's impact on climate change is. First of all, no one really knows what that is. And you talk about that OBR report. The OBR, they can't even forecast accurately what the British economy is going to do next quarter. In that exact report, 'cause I actually read the whole thing. It's a good cure for insomnia if anyone fancies it. You read the thing, they're trying to predict temperatures in 30s. What on earth are the OBR trying to do doing that? They have no chance of getting it right. And I will point to one statistic. I'll point to one statistic in that report, which was telling. They upgraded the cost of net zero, the direct cost to the exchequer, to £30 billion per year. That number keeps going up, Barry. It is making British people poorer. Look at what the hands are doing, not what the mouth is saying. China and India are digging coal out of the ground at record pace. It increases every year. And by the way, every year for the last few years, they've claimed it was going to come down. What did it do? It was going up.
Sorry,
why?
Zia.
Because they're much smarter than British politicians.
Zia.
They're much smarter, frankly, than people like you and your Prime Minister and the Tory. These clowns that are betraying the British people.
If I can get a word in edgeways, I'd answer all the questions that you've put.
But, right, go on then.
You know, your knowledge of international diplomacy is staggeringly poor. The idea that China and India are in cahoots against the rest of the world is complete nonsense. If you knew anything about international diplomacy and the geopolitical situation, you would know that China and India are against each other. And India is extremely afraid of what China's doing. You'd also know that actually India is trying to ramp up its production of renewables to compete with China. So this absolute nonsense that you come out with, you do need to actually look at the facts. And the facts are that for the past years, since 2008, when we put in place on a bipartisan basis, the climate change agreement, pretty much every other major country around the world has adopted similar legislation to control the threat, because they know that the floods that are happening, the people who are watching this, who've had their floods happen in a way that could never have been predicted, the people who are watching this, who've had their relatives die, the figures say that 10,000 excess summer deaths because of heat stroke from the last 10 years.
So why are Labour politicians banning air conditioning? I mean, this stuff... Barry, you just said a whole load of words and claimed I was talking nonsense, and you didn't actually rebut a single thing I just said. Every single year for the last decade, India and China have increased coal production while this country blew its coal production up. It doesn't matter what they claim in 2070. These people are laughing at us. Whether or not they're colluding in laughing at us, fine, they are laughing at us unilaterally. But the fact is they are laughing at us nevertheless, Barry. And it's time we had proper leadership in this country that say, yeah, of course, renewables have a place in this country.
But change? You accept that it's a serious threat to the globe. You accept it's a serious threat to the global economy. How would you tackle it?
At no point have I said it's a serious threat to the
So
economy.
you don't believe it is?
No, I said nobody knows. No. There is no serious consensus on this. And every scientist you point to, every scientist, Barry, you point to, every decade since 1960, scientists have claimed that the world was going to end. I mean, every single decade for the last 40 years, there has been a total lack of an ability to predict this stuff.
Right.
So the reality is, Barry, China, India, Russia, the United States.
You can assert all you like here, but it doesn't deny the fact.
Those countries are responsible for the lion's share of carbon emissions.
Just allow me
and all
to
Britain
come
is
back
doing,
at
as Michelle said,
but you
is
never do
outsourcing.
because you like to talk over people and make sure that nobody gets the word in edgeways.
Right.
As Michelle said, all the United Kingdom is doing under Ed Miliband is outsourcing our manufacturing and outsourcing our fossil fuel production to countries like China and India so that he can virtue signal at SW1 dinner parties.
You talked about scientists. The scientists in Russia, the scientists in China, the scientists in America, the scientists in the European Union all agree. How is it that you know
so why are they digging record amounts of coal out the ground? Why are they digging record amounts of coal out the ground?
How do you know so much more than they do?
Why are they digging record amounts of coal? That's what matters.
Because they're bringing their economy up to the level that the rest of the world has already achieved.
Yeah.
OK? But answer the question. Of do you think you know that all those scientists... The people in the Met Office, how do you know that they're wrong?
Every single person watching this programme, those of them who are old enough to remember, will know decade after decade after decade, a UN report in the 1960s, another one in the 1970s, claimed that there was going to be some kind of climate catastrophe that was going to be the end, basically, of civilization within 20 to 25 years. And every time it's been proven to be wrong. The reality is these scientists have no ability to predict
Name one
any
of those reports. Name one that said civilization is going to end.
People can go and Google this stuff.
Exist.
They absolutely
Name
do exist.
one.
There's a UN report. There's a UN report that said the ice caps were going to melt completely, and there was going to be such a significant change in global temperatures, Barry, that civilization would be severely impacted.
Look, it's very clear that these two are never going to agree on this topic. You at home